Hey guys, this is Caleb Mackey again with another little Life's Golden Nuggets. Um, Today we're going to be focusing on part 2 of our series about solution-focused therapy. Um, we're going to be following once again my favorite style and the creators of it. And today we're focusing on the second book by Steve Shazer, and it is called Keys to the Solution in Brief Therapy. Ta-da! We already read his first book, or went over his first book, Patterns of Brief Family Therapy, last time. But today, this book was really the game changer when I read it, because it took what he was noticing in the first book after a couple of years of more research and practice with him and his team, and then he created this book that really helped start to solidify the ideas of what would become the framework for solution-focused therapy. And so today we're going to just dig into that. Let me share with you some of the little nuggets that I found, and hopefully you find it helpful. First, the biggest thing that they want people to know is all that is necessary is that the person involved in a troublesome situation does something different, even if that behavior is seemingly irrational, certainly irrelevant, obviously bizarre, or humorous. Another book that I read a while back, Dracula by Bram Stoker, had a specific quote that I thought was relatable to this situation, where Van Helsing is talking about learning from a different source compared to usual. And he says it just something like this. Obviously taken way out of context, but it's a very short video, so we don't have time to dig through the whole thing. But he says, "Perhaps I may gain more knowledge out of the folly of this madman than I shall from the teaching of the most wise." Who knows? Solution-focused therapy would say absolutely. Sometimes doing something different can also mean knowing what not to do, or learning from other people to say, oh, I'd rather do it that way or not do it that way. All of that can be very important to change. And then another aspect is the most difficult and confusing version of this is that some people do not know how they will know when their problem is solved. I hear that a lot with my clients. I tell them, what is it that you want out of therapy? And they're just like, I don't know. I just want to be better. I just want to feel better. I just want my relationship to be better. And so I go, okay, well, when your depression is gone, when your relationship is better, what are you going to do, or what will happen that will tell you it's different? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, it's kind of a, it's like, come on, you're missing it. That's the part that we want to know, is that if you actually had a goal of what you were going to do or what you're motivated to do when things are going better, it'll help you now. But if you don't, then you're just kind of waiting for the fates to throw something at you that we may not always catch. So very, very, very important. Not only that, but it empowers that it's about the client. The client is the one who is doing something different that can achieve the result. Or as they say in Keys to Solution in Brief Therapy, every client carries the key to the solution. The therapist needs to know where to look. Very, 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 very important. As I said, just little gleanings of information from here, so we're not going through the whole thing. But he says, following the next few pages, it was clear to me that the goal of therapy is not elimination of the symptom, but rather helping the client set up some conditions that allow for the spontaneous achievement of the stated or inferred goal. They're focusing on the solution, not the problem. And it's not in a way of saying we're ignoring the problem. In fact, they say, let's use the problem and then use what's going on as part of the solution. So if they're depressed, oh no, well, we know that you are at your solution when you're not as depressed. Think about that. Very fun, very important. And it's all about small changes. No matter how awful and how complex the situation, a small change in one's behavior or one person's behavior can make profound and far-reaching differences in the behavior of all persons involved. They believe it about the system. What you do impacts the environment around you, and then it comes back. And so we have very much a high impact on our environment based upon what we choose to do. I believe that. We're not total slaves to the environment. We can make changes. Not all of it we can control, but a lot of it we can if we choose to believe it and to behave differently. And then furthermore, it seems that the bigger the goal or the desired change, the more likely the therapist and client will fail. So yes, keeping it small, keeping it focused, keeping it just enough to say, hey, are we noticing enough of a difference that it's worth coming back? Or that it's worth you know, trying. And they also talk about how they get as much information when the client did not perform tasks as when they did. Because to them, they get that as information to say, it's not always about resistance. It's about maybe that's just not a goal that they want. And so it's not as important, so we don't want to focus on what's not as important. And so when they talk about clients coming up with problems, Steve kind of crafted a 12 set framework of here are what these problems tend to come from, where they stem from, and then he would also take some of his solutions or his ability with therapy and how it helped his clients. And so I'll share that right there. And so you can pause and take a look at it if you'd like. I really like that framework. It was very much like, oh, that makes sense. So yes, it's about small changes. The client is the one that can make the difference, and it's about what works for the client, not the therapist, no one else. Just them. And it's not even about a perfect solution. The best part is they talk about finding a fit to the situation. It is the fit between the therapist's description of the complaint pattern and form and the map of the intervention, which seems central to the process of therapeutic change or initiating it. Oh my gosh, yes. You don't have to hit it right on the nose to get it. Sometimes if you're close, it makes sense. Part of our therapy training, I remember my professor talked about how even if the client says this is what they're feeling, it's not always true that that is what they're feeling, but that's what they are experiencing, and that's what they're putting their words to try to describe it as. So if you can use their words of what they're describing, you're following them and you're fitting with them. Maybe not perfectly, but if you just use their words, it means so much to them, and that makes sense, for sure. And that idea of fit is very important, because when it's about fitting, it's about all the different options that it can be, rather than it's got to be just one specific thing. And, that is absolutely true. Only if it is necessary, otherwise the solutions to be effective might need to match a reality as complex as the human system plus the systemic problem. That's why I like the idea that, and if people tell me that it's this one thing that they need to fix the problem, I say let's give it a shot and then let's see what happens. Because more often than not, they may do it, but then a whole other new set of situations will happen that it doesn't fit anymore. So it's finding the fit is so helpful for me in understanding that with clients. So in regards to the idea of we want to talk about small changes, we want to talk about the idea that creating the goals for what it'll be when the problem is solved, so important compared to let's just get rid of your symptoms. No. Let's give you the steps and the tools and everything for you to build the most successful life, so that whether you have the problem or don't, you can still achieve the goal that you want. That's the part that I love. And then he does have a specific chapter about certain skeleton keys that are different interventions that he used that were the most applicable with all clients in almost all scenarios. Of course, he says that it's not like that they all worked all the time, but a majority of the time they did. And really, 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 really awesome book. And then he says the best thing too is to also focus on the idea that something worth continuing to have happen is going to happen. In fact, worthwhile things are already happening. Watch for them. It's not just about what you do, but also what you're watching for and expecting that creates then the idea, can things change, and motivate the actual change. So lots of gold nuggets from here. I literally have just thrown a whole bunch out there at you, but we're just close to our time for today. I just thank you so much for once again joining me on this. I really, 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 really love this book. I really love solution-focused therapy. The deep work that Steve Shazer put into creating this idea, and at least with my personality, how it makes so much sense. Hopefully you have gleaned some things about you are the one that can create the solution to any problem that you face. And then you can start small to make it happen. And then not only that, don't focus on a one fit only solution. Think about the idea that different solutions can fit in different ways at different times, and keep searching and don't give up. Thank you guys so much. This is a lot of fun, and then can't wait for the next one in our series, which will be part 3. And we'll talk then. See ya.